real stories of rising through hardships, raw truths around life and parenting. What does the universe have in store for us? Self care to your core. We shine best in our authenticity. Welcome to Rise and Shine with the Mama Jac. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Rise and Shine with the Mama Jac. Today, I have a very special guest near and dear to my heart. It is hard for me to call her Kathy because she's always been Miss Kelly to me. It is one of my high school teachers, and oh my goodness, did she make an impact on my life. Until recently, I don't think she even knew the impact that she maybe had on a lot of people, but that's just wild to me because you were so amazing. But we're not just here to talk about your teaching, we're here to talk about you as well. So, hi, Kathy. How are you?
Well, Jackie, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh my God, I am too. And I have to show everybody for the PT
Okay.
Warriors that are, whoop, class of '04. Hey.
I'm surprised you still have that. That's amazing.
I kept two of my like cheerleading shirts, and this was one of
Hmm.
them. At my parents' house, I have a whole, like, box of, like, musical shirts, and when I was a
Yeah.
baton, that's, like, where they're at, you know? I'm sure they're ready to, like,
Oh,
ship me
I
those.
I just remembered that. You
Mhm,
competed in everything in baton. Oh my God, I just remember that.
mhm. So, let's get into you. You started teaching at what age?
Oh my gosh. I was just talking about this with my friends. I went out to breakfast with some retired teachers this morning, and I turned 22 the day before I started teaching.
Oh, dang.
Seniors. Yes.
Oh my god, you guys were almost the same age.
I know. I was like 4 years older than some of them. 3, could be 3 years older than some of them. So strange. That was way back in the fall of 1987.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
And since you've retired, I know you're a professor now,
Yes.
but how many years in high school? Were you only high school? Is that all you
No,
taught was high school?
no, so I had a weird career. So I was at high school for like till 2006, and then I was a principal for almost 3 years. And then I
Mhm.
have a pretty serious autoimmune chronic disorder, and it just wiped me out. It was too, like on a football day, I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then went home, ate, came back there till 11 o'clock at night. It was just too
Mhm.
much. So my body just said no. And then I went to do reading intervention at the elementary. So,
Mhm.
and then that job went away, and I went to do middle school English, seventh and eighth grade. And then a job opened back up at the high school, and I bid on that and was able to go back to the high school because that's where I'm most comfortable.
So you have two girls, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And how old were you when you had them?
Caitlin is 26 and Emma is soon to be 24 in October. So she's 23 right now. Yep.
So you were pretty solid in your career once.
Yeah. So I was like 31 when I
Mhm.
had Caitlin. Or, yeah, 31. So,
I remember they were really little. I feel like they were
yeah.
toddlers when I was in your class. So that would have
When
been like
graduate.
oh, oh 01, oh 02 is when I actually had you
Okay.
as
So
a
Emma
teacher.
was born in 2000. So, yeah. And then Caitlin was born in 97.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and, it's funny, when I became a mother, I thought of you, and I was
Oh,
like, "Oh my gosh, she was, like, so good at what she was doing, like, how did she do that?" Because I have 2 kids that are, like, 2 years apart, and so I was it's wild. It is wild, and
mm-hmm.
so having to balance because you were probably looking out for your kids' education, right? And you were probably educating them at home and then your students. So,
Yes.
can you kind of explain that a little bit? How did life look for you once you had kids? Like prior to having kids, being a teacher, and then afterwards?
Yeah, and then to throw another layer on that, Jackie, which you may not have known about, like when Caitlin was, I think she was about 7 months old, I got diagnosed with Addison's disease. I nearly died and got died, and it was a big ordeal. They didn't know what was wrong because it's so rare. So throw that on it, it complicated it. So it's kind of hard for me to talk about my journey as a mother without talking about, it also with having chronic illness because it's
Yeah.
kind of, but I never had a good work life balance. I was talking to my sister about it. I just never knew how to do that well. And I think I spent, I don't know, but I kind of put myself in harm's way because of that. So when the kids were little, I would get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and grade papers and be in school by 5:36 and grade papers till students came. So I kind of like put myself on a back burner, which is not a good thing to do. Wouldn't recommend it to any young mother because, there's so many things there, but I didn't know how to accomplish it all, without sacrifice. And there was a lot of like sacrifice. It was really, really hard. I
Mhm.
look back on it now. When you're in the midst of it, you're in the throes of it. You don't realize how hard it is because you're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
But now looking back on it, I know if kids ever have kids, I'm going to kind of try to guide them a little bit better to have a better work life balance than I
Mhm.
did. But that's hard as a teacher because you care about these students, you worry about them, you're thinking about them constantly, and you have your own children, and it's like they're your children too. So it was really hard. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and your kids are how old now?
23 and 26
Okay, so
or
you're
27. Had a birthday, 27. Sorry.
dang,
I
that
know.
is like oh my goodness.
I
So,
know.
you found out you had a chronic illness. Is it like an autoimmune kind of
Yeah,
thing? Okay,
these is I mean, I don't make any like cortisol. So,
okay. So,
mhm.
and when was that? You said you
So
had
that was
already
St. Patrick's Day of 1998. She was born in 97. So,
oh, okay, okay. So, who did that impact you postpartum depression-wise at all? Did you have any of
um
that?
no, I didn't. No.
Okay.
Mm-mm. No, I
Mhm,
didn't have a lot of anxiety.
mhm.
Both my girls have anxiety, but no postpartum. No.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good because I would feel like with something like cortisol, maybe that would add to it. But maybe because you were already aware of it and treating it the way it should be treated, it kind of helped in some way
Yeah.
for that not
Yes.
to happen.
Trials and tribulations with that. I was hospitalized a lot. And the kids, it kind of has impacted them a lot, over the years. So I tried to shield them from it, which is kind of hard. I mean, it's the second pregnancy was a very high risk pregnancy because I had the illness and everything. And we didn't tell my daughter I was pregnant till like almost like, what would it be, third trimester? You know what I mean? We just didn't tell her because there could have been a chance something could happen to me, something could happen to the baby. And I just didn't want her to have that. One day she did say to me, "Mommy, you're getting fat."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Yeah, mommy's gaining weight." But when we did tell her, that was fine. But I always thought, well, we have to get to a certain point before I can tell her. So, but there were like I said, a lot of hospital trips throughout the years and illnesses and everything. And I know it impacted my kids. I tried to shield them from it as much as I could, but there were times where I'd be in for days,
Yeah.
and my husband was on his own, or thank God I had a huge family support. My parents, my aunt Pat, they would take the kids and watch them if I were in the hospital and try to keep them occupied so they didn't worry too much about me. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
yeah.
I'm
I always call it like medical trauma. I have some, not really postpartum, but I have some medical trauma.
yeah, for
All
sure. I mean, my
Yeah.
mother is the same way. I dealt with her sicknesses my whole life, you know? I don't know if you know much about that, but she had
Mm-mm.
a stroke whenever I was 12. Well, she had a mental breakdown when I was 8, and then she had a
Okay.
stroke when I was 12, and then her first bout of cancer was when I was 15, and then
Okay.
she went through a surgery where she almost passed. She had a hernia. That was when I was around like 22, and then she got her cancer back again when I was 35, and now
Mhm.
she's back again with it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So, it's been a whole life of stuff. So, if
Yeah.
your girls need anybody to talk to about that, give them my
Thank
contact because I've worked
Yeah.
through it. Like, we were talking, I told you a little bit about spirituality. That's actually
Yeah.
how I got through it because I took myself into a mental breakdown because of my postpartum depression and anxiety. That's what started this whole podcast was I didn't want any mothers to feel like they were alone because I felt so alone. And but with anything like that, right? Even with chronic disease, I'm sure at
Mhm.
times you're like, can I just talk to another person that's going through what I'm going through? Like it kind of alienates you. But
Yeah.
it blew
And
up.
you look good on the outside, so people think everything's fine, and it's not, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. So I had to do a lot of healing. That's where my spirituality came in was digging into the past, seeing the root of everything. How can I go back and mother myself through all these things? And
Yes.
then recently, my mom, like, I got sick with the flu, right? And my mom just so happened to be visiting my kids. The stomach flu went through all of us, right? And she took care of me. And I can't tell you how healing that was because it
Oh,
wasn't that my mom didn't wanna be there for me. She worked all the time still, even with all those illnesses, you know?
yeah,
But as
yeah.
an adult having that, it was like a full circle moment. Like, I just my heart felt so good. But
Absolutely.
I understand the your daughter's side of it for sure.
Mhm. So so my mom, when I was in the throes of the end there with Addison's disease, I was supposed to go into the hospital for testing while I was so sick, because the doctor said, I think you have Addison's disease, but I want to do this test anyway, just to confirm it. Well, I was so sick, I canceled the test. Well, my mother heard, and my mother lives about a half hour away. She got in the car. She came down here. I'm going to start crying. She came down to my house and she took one look at me and she said, You're dying. We're going to the hospital now. I can see you're dying. Whisked me off to the hospital, saved my life. So, yeah, I know what a mother's love is. And, there's your mom with illness and having cancer, and she's subjecting herself to getting sick and probably getting really sick because, on top of that, she has cancer.
Yeah.
So, a mother's love is never ending, and there's nothing we won't do for our children, even though, it may harm us physically, mentally, but we still do it.
And just feeling that through the generations is beautiful as well, right?
Mhm.
It's
Absolutely.
It
Yes.
truly can be. I'm not gonna speak for everybody, but in my case, it truly was, like, seeing her with my daughter and my son, and it's just an incredible thing. So, let's get back to teaching.
Okay.
What would you say was your favorite part about teaching?
Just the relationships I made with students. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? I never understood, and there are people out there who are teachers that really just don't seem to like kids. Um you probably had some in your lifetime as a teacher, and you're thinking, why is this person a teacher? Like, the best thing about teaching was the relationships and the impacts that you could have on students. So that was the best thing for me. I always loved learning from my students too, because if, let's say I've read the Great Gatsby a million times, they could always bring something different that I never thought about. And I was never one of those teachers who said, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Let's talk about that. I didn't ever thought
Mhm.
about that, because that was the exciting thing for me. It doesn't matter what I think about the literature, it matters what they think about the literature and how they can kind of, relate that to their lives. That was
Yeah,
the joy for me.
yeah, amazing. And what would you say, like, the hardest thing about teaching was?
Trying to juggle everything when, like state testing came in and the importance of state testing. And I think there's a place for that. But trying to juggle that with meeting all the needs of all the students in your classroom.
Yeah,
There are some kids that don't have enough to eat at home, and we have to make them proficient on a state exam, and that's hard to do when you don't have food at home. um you know just trying to meet all their needs and still give them an education and make them ready for whatever they want to do with their lives.
Mhm. So, are either of your girls teachers?
Yes, my oldest is. She's a German teacher in at McKeesport High School, which, is a underprivileged school system, and she adores it. Adores it. The other one is a science nerd, so I love that too.
Nice. Nice.
Love
That's awesome. Following in your
yeah.
footsteps. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's amazing. So let's talk about empty nesting, because
Yes.
that happened you've kinda had a little while sitting with it, but what does that feel like? Like, is there a moment where you go back and you just had to, like, look at everything and you imagine, like, "Oh my gosh, this life with my kids." Was there anything that you like, I would imagine that's a healing process. That's something you kinda grieve as a mother whenever your kids leave.
Yes, definitely,
Mhm,
definitely. So you have like the college empty nest where if they're close enough in age, they're both in college, but you're still needed, right?
mhm,
Mom, I need this, mom, I need this. Oh, bookstore with this, or I have a big test, so you're still needed. And you still communicate with them. But then when it becomes to the full empty nest, it's hard. It's really hard because it's almost like you're not needed. And like, what do I do with my time? And then on top of that, retiring was difficult too, because once again, I was needed as a teacher. And you're right, that word you used, grieving, is just perfect. Like, I grieve not being a teacher anymore. I grieve not being with my girls anymore. In fact, my birthday's tomorrow. I'm going to be what am I going to be, 59? I never remember. And I just said to my girls, I just want to spend the day with you for my birthday. Don't get me anything. I just want to spend the day with you. So, and they're like, yes, and they're all excited. And so we're going to spend the day together. But, it was really, really hard to not have them here anymore, not feel like be needed, giving up teaching, not feeling like I needed there. Working in a college has made it a lot better, but it's still different because it's not every day, with it. But it's hard. You have to find like new things to do with your time. I actually ended up seeing a therapist just to help me deal with like that grieving process. Like, what is my identity now?
mhm.
I'm still a mother, but I'm not like a mother like I was. I'm not a teacher like I was. And it was really difficult for me to do that. So I found I'm volunteering a little bit more. You have to reconnect with your spouse on a different way, because before it's like all through the children you're connecting with your spouse. So now you're alone and you just got to rediscover each other a little bit more, which is fun. And then you want to be the mother that like has these adult children, and you want to help them, but you don't want to interfere in their lives too much. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
it's a delicate balance, and it's hard. It's just a different kind of thing. But I love that word grieving, because that's what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah, for sure. And I just couldn't imagine being your kid because honestly, you helped so much, like, even just with the little bits that I can remember. I see you looked at yourself as a teacher and a mother. I
Yes.
look back and I think of you, and obviously you were my teacher, but I think of you as a strong feminist woman that didn't take any crap
Mhm.
and was very caring. Like, if you set aside time to talk to us, it was the most, honestly, this sounds exaggerated, but it's not in my head, the most beautiful thing in the world when I look back at it, because you cared so much. And I told you the story already, but I'm gonna tell
Mhm.
everybody on here again. I remember in your class something happened, somebody raised their hand or I said a comment, and you just said something to me like, "Don't you ever let a man treat you that way. Don't you ever let the boys talk to you that way." And that stuck in my head, like, the rest of my life. Like,
Mhm.
I
Yes.
still remember that. I still
Oh.
remember, like, kind of where I was sitting in the classroom. That's, like, one of those golden memories for me.
Mhm.
And so you were just this strong, independent. I remember you were Miss Kelly, but you were married, right? You were married at the
Yes.
time. And I was like,
Yes.
"That is so cool." Like,
Yeah.
she has respect for her relationship, but she doesn't need to take that name at this moment. And I actually thought about that.
Yeah, I hyphenated, which I would never
Mhm.
recommend because it's a nightmare. So I just, would go by Miss Kelly, Kathy Kelly. I still introduce myself as Kathy Kelly, or
Mhm.
sometimes if I don't say Garris, it's just as mouthful. My own daughter kept her name. She
Yeah.
kept her name. Got married in January. She's still Caitlin-Garris. So, but yeah, I mean, it. I don't know. There was just something about my identity that I just didn't want to give up. And I
Mhm.
still wanted to respect my husband, so I wanted to hyphenate, but it's just a logistical nightmare. They can't find you in the computer, and you would think it would get better, but it doesn't.
Yeah, I
Which
added mine to my middle name,
oh, good.
which is a very interesting signature because it's Jacqueline MF Norton. And people down south are like and I'm like, "Mhm." I had
Uh-huh.
Fetch as the last name before. You can't go that quirky and then go to Norton and just not throw something in there, so
That's awesome.
yes, so I and it's funny in LA, no one said a thing about it. As soon as I moved to Georgia, I remember I was at the doctor's office and this woman looked at me and she smiled and she's like, "I see what you did."
I
I
see.
was like,
That's
"Yay,
awesome.
somebody finally gets my humor in my name."
That's
So
great. So I will say though, both of my girls are fiercely independent women.
Mhm.
I kind of raised them that way, and all, just that's how I
Where
raised
did that
them.
come from in you? Like, where did you get that inspiration?
I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like my dad in a lot of ways, like really strong, like just opinionated, just say what I think. So I think it was just from that. I remember being little, and we're Catholic, so we would go to church, and I always wanted to be an altar boy. And they're like, the priests are like, no, girls can't be altar boys. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I went on vacation to Ocean City, Maryland. We went to this church, and guess what? There were girl altar boys. So I came back to my priest, and I'm like, we were in Ocean City, Maryland. There are girl altar boys. Why can't we have them here? So I guess from a very young age, I've kind of always been like, if I see something that I consider to be an injustice, I'm going to call it out. But
I
yeah,
love that. That's, like, written in your genes. Like, it's
yeah.
just you.
Oh, I've always
Oh my
spoken my
goodness.
kind of who I am. Yeah.
I
Neither
love
love. So.
oh my goodness. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I mean, I followed your journey all throughout after, once Facebook hit. Like I
Yes.
followed your journey and I was watching you and I think I would often comment or like some of the stuff that you would
Yeah.
post or say things just because you meant so much to me. So,
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people out there like me and I have proof.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
oh, I have proof. So, I'm going to read some stuff to you that I've collected.
Oh my God. Are
Okay.
you gonna make I? Oh. Okay.
So these are I made sure I blocked you from them so you couldn't see me asking people on Facebook,
Oh. Okay.
but I
Sneaky.
put out a post and I was like, "I'm interviewing Miss Kelly. Everybody, like, who wants to speak up? Let's tell
Oh.
her because you meant so much to me and I knew I wasn't the only one." So we got I'm not gonna say names because I didn't get the okay to say names on the podcast, but somebody
Okay.
from that graduated in '05 says, "One of my favorite teachers, she truly cared for her students. I still have my binder from her class, all her notes on my projects." And then
Oh.
we have somebody from 1998 that graduated, "One of the best teachers, she was always so kind." We have somebody from 2000. She was
Mm.
definitely one of my favorite teachers. I love her class. Her passion and enthusiasm were contagious. I was so
Mm.
thankful to be a part of a trip she planned to Boston, class of 2000.
Oh, I remember that trip. I was pregnant with Emma.
And then let's see. Okay, this is a funny one. Had her for homeroom as well as first period one year. She was always amazed I could show up late to class after being in her homeroom. I remember telling her I just like to go walk around. Then we have he was '04. We got a couple '04s, right? So
Okay.
there's another '04. Had the pleasure of having her for homeroom and English class. She was always there on tougher days to help, whether it was school related or personal. I will never forget the Great Gatsby party. Hope she's doing well.
Aw.
And then we have this is another oh 04. Miss
Mhm.
Kelly was, and I'm sure is still amazing. I'm sure most people remember the whole debacle of me getting nominated for homecoming court as a joke. Haha, let's nominate the only openly gay lesbian. She was the first one to offer to drive me and Mallory in the parade with her badass convertible Mustang. Legit, she was the sweetest, most memorable teacher I personally had in high school. I hated English with every fiber of my being, and I only made it through because of her my senior year. Legitimately, when I people ask me who my most favorite high school teacher was, hands down, it was Miss Kelly. I don't think I would have passed my senior year, let alone actually completed my senior project if it had not been for her.
Oh, that's amazing. She was a sweetheart. I just told her, okay, they nominated you as a joke. Own it. Let's own
Yeah.
it. And we owned it.
I remember that too. Then we have she was my creative writing teacher and really helped me to develop an outlet for me that I still use today to express myself. Also prepared me for peer reviews and incorporating constructive criticism in a way that has carried me throughout my life in both creative and practical practice. And that's an O 04 as well. And then we have, oh, I love her. She inspired me to become an English teacher. When I taught 11th grade, I even did some of the same lessons she did with us. I am forever grateful for her compassion, wisdom, enthusiasm, and encouragement. Without her, I wouldn't be in the profession I am in, nor would I be the educator I am today.
Oh my gosh, Jackie, you're killing me. Oh my God. Amazing. That is
I
amazing.
believe, yes. Yes, I just needed to share some of that with you to have you understand like the impact of teachers. You have the ones that you remember that are like, okay, and some of them that you're like, oh, as an adult,
Yeah.
like you think back and you're like, what were they going through that they had to be like that? But
Right.
you were just so real and so just authentic, and it was so beautiful, and you impacted so many people. Now, this is something I put out, and I got those
Mhm.
responses within, like, a day. So, that's
Oh my
not even to say if I had access to, like, all the people, how many responses I would have gotten. I'm sure I could have quadrupled that, you know what I mean? But I had to share some of those with you because you changed lives. Teachers change lives. And we remember when we come in sad one day and you say something to cheer us up. We remember when you actually show that you care. Are you okay? Like, are you sure? Can I do anything for you? Or, just take a step outside and take a breather. Like teachers that truly care, I mean, and you are like, if there was like an Emmy for a teacher or a Grammy, like, yes, best teacher, best career in teaching.
God.
Yes, we would all nominate you because I'm telling
Thank
you, you
you.
had a great impact on so many people. And your daughter is going to do the same thing. And I'm sure your other daughter will do the same thing. And teachers don't get enough credit. They
Mm-mm.
don't get enough credit. But they are basically our parents when our parents aren't there. They are
Mhm.
basically the reason you shaped who we are as people. Like, teachers shape who you are as a person. Bad
Mhm.
experiences and great experiences. You were a
Yes.
great experience, and it's just so important, and I really just wanted to highlight all of that around you because, like I said, in my mind, you and then, like I said, Miss Scandera, who I haven't been able to find and get a hold of either, because I
I
remember
know.
her too.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. But you're right. A- and to me, what does it take to be kind? Well, what does it take? It doesn't take anything more to build relationships with students. I mean, kids that were absolute terrors for other teachers were fine in my class. And
Mhm.
somebody, I'm friends with this person on Facebook, and he was like, "You were my favorite teacher." He goes, "Because you never treated me like the bad kid I was." And I was like, "Well, you're just being a silly teenager." You know what I mean? And he said, "No, thank you for that. It means a lot." So, um, it doesn't take much. It's not hard to notice when kids are going through things. I mean, they wear their hearts on their sleeves. So, take some time. And that's what I teach, like in my college courses. I'm like, you have to build those relationships. It is the most important thing. You will get kids to move mountains for you and for themselves, more importantly, if you build that relationship. And that's
Mhm.
what it's all about.
Mhm. Well, all the gold stars to you for what you've done to with so many people. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Advice for new
Yeah.
teachers going in. What would be
Mhm.
your advice?
Well, it would just be that, to be authentic and build relationships, and
Mhm.
to be kind. You never know what a student is going through at home. There was a sign I bought for my daughter. Oh gosh, and I can't even remember what the saying is, but it was like a respectful thing of all different people. Well, then at the bottom it had hearts, and every heart was a different skin color, and then every
Mhm.
heart was a different. There were like LGBTQ,
Mhm.
like the flag, and then there were other flags in there in the hearts. And I said, put this outside your classroom or in your classroom, so the kids know that you will respect them no matter who they are. And she did, and a student commented. She's like, "I love that. That makes me feel welcome here."
Mhm.
So, just welcoming them, accepting them for who they are. And that's one of the things that was hard for me as a teacher, was to learn about, let's say, a gay student whose parents wouldn't accept them. That was so hard for me, because I'm thinking, well, you can't talk to your parents about this. And they're like, no, they'd never love me. They wouldn't love me. Oh, so that actually impacted me as a mother, because from the time my kids were little, I thought, I never want them to feel that way. And I
Yeah.
would tell them, time they were little children, I don't care who you love. I don't care, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, male, female. I don't care who you love. Love is love. The Beatles have a song, and they said, "Love is love." And
Mhm.
because I've dealt with, over the years, numerous kids like feeling like their parents aren't going to love them anymore. And mm-mm, no. And I've lost students to suicide. And that takes it out of you. And I thought, I don't ever want my kid to feel like they're not going to be loved, and that they would turn to suicide because of
Mhm.
who they love or who they are. So that was important for me as a mother, to just always tell them that. Always tell them that. I don't care who you love. Love who you love. Love is love.
Mhm. Yes. And that is a great, great thing to tell to your kids since they're little. I mean, we even named our kids kind of androgynous names just so
Mhm.
maybe they could keep it if they decide that they feel more comfortable in not the body they were born in, let's say,
Mhm.
or,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe they would want to change it if they change their identity, which my mommy heart would hurt a little bit because I'm like, I picked these so change it. But
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
but
Yeah. I that
you
me
know,
for you.
my son prefers playing with girls. Like, we were at my uncle's funeral, his wake. There was a group of boys and a group of girls playing Barbies. He was with the group of boys. They were kicking each other, little boys, how they are.
Right.
And he's like, I don't really want anything to do with that. So he went into the room with the Barbies and he's playing Barbie the whole time. And he's five
Right.
years old. Now,
Right.
some parents would go in there and be like, you don't need to be playing with Barbies. And I go in and I'm like, oh my God, what outfit did you pick? Her purse is beautiful. Good
Right.
choice. good
Yes.
choice, you know, like, and it's so funny because you never know, and kids are just kids, like, just let them be who they are, you know what I
Ab-
mean? And I love that you were that way as well, because the comments that you would get sometimes, now, thankfully, you see a lot of kids with painted nails, boys and girls,
mhm.
parents are more accepting. Like, being in
Yes.
Georgia, I was scared because, it's different than Los Angeles, like, way different than Los Angeles,
Yeah.
obviously, but you know what? I was wrong because my city is
Good.
not. Where I'm
Good.
living is not. So, that was a judgment I made that was completely false, and thank
Mhm.
God for that, but or whoever you believe in for that, right? But
Yes.
it was great, great talking to you. Do you have anything that you wanna put out there just to my listeners, advice, just
Sure.
anything in your heart? Because I know you went through cancer as well, right?
Yeah, lovely little lymphoma scar here. Yes,
Mhm.
but I have the slowest moving lymphoma that you can have. So they were like, "You have the best cancer to have." So I was like, "Good, yes, yeah." I don't know. The hits just keep coming, Jackie. I don't even know how I'm upright some days because I just had my knee replaced. So I've had both hips replaced, my knee replaced. I'm not even 60.
Yeah.
So you don't laugh about it, you'll kind of sit around and just cry about it is one of the things, and that doesn't mean I don't get sad, and I didn't get sad as a mother, why me and all that, but I just I can't dwell on it because I would just go down the rabbit hole and never come out, you know what I mean? So I think that for that, a couple of things I would touch on, and you can edit these in however you like if they think they fit a couple places better, is just like I used to get annoyed when I was young. People tell me, enjoy the moment. It goes so fast, right? And you're like, oh my God, how can I enjoy the moment? I'm working. I have all these kids at school. I have these kids at home. I have to do laundry. I have to do groceries. Like, you're just in it, and you're trying to survive it. But it really does. I never thought, like, here I am. My daughter's 27. I never thought it does go so fast. So if there's any time where you can just take a breather and just kind of go back and say, all right, dang it, I'm going to enjoy this. And if something has to give, it gives. And for me, it was housework. Before I got sick, I was like perfect type A personality, always changed my shoes to match my purse, to match my outfit for work. After I got sick, it was almost like God's way of saying, all right, that stuff doesn't matter. What matters is what you can do. You don't have to keep a perfect house. The time you spend with your kids is what matters. They'll get over the toys being all over, the clothes not being folded or whatever. So give yourself some grace in that. Don't kind of have guilt about things that you can't do. I know, and having lived it, like there were days where I was just sick and I couldn't get off the couch. Like I was just so sick. You know what I mean? And I couldn't always do what other mothers could do physically. We'd go to Kennywood and I would have to stay out of the sun because I'm heat intolerant, but I was at Kennywood. I would go. That's our local amusement park for those of you who don't know. But I would wear out quickly. So over the years I had a lot of guilt over that. Like I wasn't the mom that I thought I should be because of having a chronic illness. And I finally asked my daughters about it, and all that stress I did about, they're like, no, mom, everything was fine. Everything was good. Like they didn't even notice really, or
Mhm.
they knew and they understood that mommy needs a break and mommy can't do this or mommy can't do that. So I think you need to give yourself some grace as a mother. We try to be super mom, super parent, super teacher, super whatever, and you can't. Something has to give. So whatever you decide that you can give, let it give. Because I wasted time on guilt and over that, and it didn't even matter when I asked my adult children about it. They're like, they didn't even matter. The other thing I would say is, don't ever have the same expectations for your children. So my one kid is a math science kid, and my other kid is a language English kid. Okay. And so she didn't do well in math. And I was never like, you have to get A's. No, I struggled in math. And how could I turn around and expect her to get A's? I hate that parents want their kids to have all A's. It's not important. And this is a teacher saying this. It's not important to have all A's. It's like, are you learning? Are you growing? Are you doing better? Are you doing the best that you can do? If that's the case, then it doesn't matter what the grade is at the end. I know you had talked about your mom getting sick. My mom lost her first breast when I was a 14-year-old in high school, and her second one when I was an adult. And my grades from freshman year in high school are horrific. When you look at them, they're horrific. And ever,
Me too.
consequently, my GPA at the end was awful. So I always understood that there are bigger things in life that are more important than what that report card says. Are you learning? Are you growing? Are you trying your best? And if that's the case, be kind to your children. Don't put these expectations on them. Like I would tell my daughter, this is horrible, but the math daughter, I would tell her, fail it. I don't like the state testing. It's okay if you fail it. I'm not going to be mad. I know
Mhm,
that's not you. And this is a girl who in high school graduated being speaking French, German, and Spanish, but thought she was stupid because she couldn't do math because that's what society says is important. All these
mhm.
tests, math score, your reading score. Okay, do you speak three languages? I don't think so. But,
Yeah.
so give them grace, learn that they're not going to be the same, that and pay attention to their mental health. Like my youngest has very severe anxiety. It started in, well, third grade. I probably didn't start there, but that's when we noticed it. So we always did things to help with that and be very attentive to that, especially in the world we live in today. You have to look at your children's mental health. And there's no stigma going to therapy, there's no stigma getting them help if you need it. We had a workbook. It was a great book if any young mothers have kids with anxieties. It was called What to Do When You Worry Too Much. And there are things in there we would draw in it, we would make lists, and it really helped her through that. And I got her some therapy to help with that. And she allowed me to talk about her anxiety and everything. But so I think that that's important to pay attention to. In their teenage years, I just tried to talk about everything with them, like from the time they were little. So no topic was taboo, that they
Mhm,
could always talk to me, and they still talk to me about everything. So, I think that that's important for their teenage years, is just to let them come to you, to have that importance, give them the freedom to safely experience things. Don't be a helicopter parent, you know what I mean? Let them make mistakes, let them fail. That's how they learn. That nobody's perfect, don't ever expect them to be perfect. I think that that's one of the things that, as a teacher, helped me as a mother, because you could see where a kid was and where they ended up. And
mhm.
I think it really helped me with being a parent, was, just give them the freedom to experience it, give them the freedom to do it. In fact, oh my gosh, you might find this funny, but my oldest daughter was a fifth grader when the whole Twilight thing was coming out, and
Mhm,
she's a reader. Both my girls are readers, thank God. And so I read the Twilight books ahead of her and said, okay, can you read them? She could read them. So we got through to the last Twilight book, which I think it was the last one, Breaking Dawn. Yeah, big thick one. And, they break the bed during sex, right?
yeah.
And that's all it is. That's all they describe. There's no
Yeah.
graphic detail. So I read the book, I let her read it. She got such crap from the librarian and a couple other teachers about reading that book, and do I know what that's in the book? Okay, your mom's an English teacher. Yes, I know what's in that
Yeah,
book. And I'm
right?
like, right? So they had to bring books out of meeting. So listen to how badass I was. I We took off the book jacket. We put another book jacket on. We scratched out the name on the spine of the book, so if they took the book jacket off, they couldn't see that she was still reading it.
Mhm,
So let's just say, like, I'm kind of liberal with what I let them read, because I figured I would read it ahead, they would read it. But it's that freedom to let them experience it. I'd rather her experience it through literature, and know some things, and then ask me questions about it. So keeping lines of communication open are important, even though when they're teenagers, they don't want to really talk to you that much. So those are some of the things kind of I learned. Sorry, I'm looking at notes because I wrote some things out that I learned over the years. I don't know if that'll be helpful to your listeners. I hope. I hope, but those are the things that I kind of have stressed in my relationship with my girls. And I'm very fortunate that they still call me and still come visit me and tell me things and ask my advice, which is great, which is great. So I think those lines of communication just have to be open for that to continue in adulthood. And I know recently Emma had said to me about a year or so ago, she texted me and she said, "Mom, thank you for not being one of those parents that kind of just I forget what it was, like, just interfered too much." You know what I
Mm,
mean? She said, "You gave us our freedom, you helped us be successful, but you weren't so strict with us."
mhm.
Um and I was like, "Oh, that's so kind." And now it's weird. A way we keep communicating is through TikToks. We'll see a TikTok remind us of each other, and we'll send them to her. So like, so funny because now our love notes are TikToks.
That's so funny. My dad learned how to use TikTok and everything, and he's been sending all sorts of stuff. It's
Oh
hilarious. One more question for you.
yeah,
Friendship with your kids, okay? We
yes,
all know we're moms, right? But I will call my kids my best friends as well. And I don't mean that I'm going to be like their best friend as in like their actual best friend, but I
right.
mean it in like, you mean so much to me and you are my son, but you're also my best friend. Like, I love you so much. I love who you are. I try to tell him, like, same with my daughter. My daughter doesn't really understand yet, but, I'll be that way with my daughter as well. So, and then I feel like as your kids get older, and this is just between me and my mom, once I became an adult, and I mean an adult, I mean not 18 years old, because at
Right, right.
18 years old, you're still a kid. At
Yes, you are.
21, in my opinion, you're a kid, right?
I know.
Like
I
once
was
I had kids,
22.
right? Like you're still a kid in your
Yeah.
20s. They say you're kids with bills, like a teenager with bills, basically. And
Yes.
when I had my kids and my mom started to relate to me in other ways, it is like
Hmm.
she's my best.
Yes,
Like,
absolutely.
truly, she's my mother and my best friend. Like, the first one I would wanna call for things, and I care about what she says. Don't tell her I said that.
We become our mothers, Jackie.
Other room,
It's
I'm like, "Don't tell her she's right all the time," because she'll be like, "I know."
we do become our mothers.
But did
Yeah.
you when was that swap for you? Did you have that swap with both of your girls yet, or
So I have a little different take on that. I like how you clarified the best friend because it always irritated me when parents were best friends with their kids,
Hmm,
because to me that always meant that they weren't authoritarian when they needed to
yeah,
be. you so I like how you clarified it, because I mean I'm a Gen Xer, so you know how that goes. But so I was always like, your mother isn't, when they were little, your mother isn't your friend, but I'm always here for you. You know what I
mhm,
mean? So probably back in the day, it just had a different meaning to
yeah,
me. But I like how you said it best. But so probably when they were in college, it flipped. I would think they've never called me their best friend. I hope they think of me as their best friend, or one of their best friends, I should say, but they never called me. And maybe that's my fault because I always said, "I'm not your friend, I'm your mother." Or get, but but I still did things that like friends would do for them. But they'll call me, or like I said, whenever they need anything, or send me a TikTok about something that sparks them. But I guess that's why I kind of but didn't have that viewpoint as a best friend. But I like hanging out with my girls, and like I said before, that's what I just want for my birthday is just to hang out with my girls because they're not together anymore. They live in, obviously different places and everything. I just want to spend time with them, and we enjoy spending time together. So I would say yes, we are friends because we do enjoy spending time together. In fact, whenever I ask them to come home or go out to dinner or do something, they always do. You know what I mean? They would do anything for me and I would do anything for them. So, yes, it's just I never really called them my best friends, but I think they are. I think they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, I do. I tell my son, I'm like, "You know you're my best friend." And he's
No.
like and he's all and I'm like, "Yeah, mommy loves you so much. She's your mommy, but she's your best friend too.
See,
Like,
yes.
you're my best friend." I say I'm
Right.
his best friend. He has the choice because 'cause I'll ask him, "Who's your best friend?" And, with my husband,
Yeah.
"Who's your best friend, kid?"
It's just too because I've seen over the years, I've seen parents that were like really just trying to act like a
Oh,
teenager
yeah.
when they're
No.
kids. That's kind of always put me at a like, no, we're not friends,
Yeah.
kind of with students. Like, I always said I was a friendly professional
Mm.
because I wanted to be friendly towards them, but I didn't want to be friends with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that is a whole different dynamic. Then there's
Yeah.
no kind of respect for me as a teacher, respect for them as a student. So yeah, that's hard.
Yeah. Mom first, friend second. That's where
Yes.
the
Yeah.
authoritarian comes in. Mom first, friend second.
Right.
Like, if
Yeah.
you truly needed a best friend to talk to or anything, you're in trouble as a teenager in the middle of the night,
Yeah.
you were feeling unsafe, that's when the
Yes.
friend part kicks in, right? But you bet your butt the mama part's
Right.
probably gonna kick in that night or the
Yeah.
next day as well. Like,
Well,
you're gonna see the mama version.
absolutely. My youngest did. I always told them, "You call me if you need me. If you're at a party and you don't feel safe." And they were at a party and they started drinking, and she, being a teacher's kid, that's even harder. She was not safe. I mean, she didn't feel safe. Her friends didn't feel safe. So she called first person. I'm calling my mom. She'll come get us. So I had a whole pile of kids in my car and dropped them off all at home. And I was like happy that I was the first person she called. Mom, come get us. We don't feel safe here. We're scared.
And
Yeah.
let's also call out that she wasn't peer pressured into doing something she didn't wanna do because of that strong role that you were in her life. Even if you didn't instill it in them, like, "Be strong, be this, be
Mhm.
that," you were that role model.
Thank you.
So, you know, it's like, yeah, stand your ground, you know?
Right.
That's
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah, they both do. Very, very easily.
I love that. I love that
Yeah.
so much.
No problem. I'll just add one more thing. I know before you had used the word feminist, and everybody looks at that as a dirty word. And I actually, like, one of my last years of being in the classroom, because the last few years I was in the library as a librarian, media center person. And I actually did a whole thing on like feminism. We were reading something, and I always presented it to students like, it just means that you respect women and that women are equal and women can do whatever men can do. It's not that there's nothing about it that is man hating because that's what sometimes they always want to go to. And
Mhm.
I said, I'm a feminist. I'm happily married, be 34 years next month. I said, my husband is very strong, centered of who he is, and he respects me, and he knows, how I'm going to be and everything and the world and everything. And I said, you don't, it's not about hating men. I'm married. I obviously don't hate
Yeah,
men.
right?
Actually had a boy come up to me afterwards and said, thank you. That nobody had ever presented him feminism in a positive way. It was always in a negative, you hate men and you want to be better than men and and I'm like, no, there are definitely men who are stronger than I am and I might be stronger than a man. I would always tell students
Mhm,
that all I wanted to be is treated equally.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. I 100% back that. Because again, happily married, we work great
Right.
together. And that's probably why we do, is because that respect. It's like, because he's one too, right? I would consider him a feminist as well, because he's always looking
Yeah.
out for, I mean, even in his jobs, like if he has a mom that he can hire, he's going to call the mom first probably. And
Oh.
it's just like, it's beautiful to see,
Mhm.
that he knows and he understands, the single moms, they need the help. They need
Yeah.
and they're just as good. So he hires women and men alike as long as they're available, which is so attractive to me, cuz I'm like, yes, cuz he works in a very male dominated space. So
Right.
him to give women a chance, that I do it like that because,
Right.
duh, like, I mean, they should be there in that position if they're good at their job. So,
Right.
and I love that. And some people just aren't like that, unfortunately, still to this day. But
N
I think it's
No,
getting
and
better
my
and
husband,
better.
he helped raise 2 strong girls too, you know what I mean? He would tell them, "Don't take people's stuff, don't," da, 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 and if and I always felt good because they would talk to him about guy problems. I mean, if they were dating someone, they'd get, his opinion, and I always liked that they would talk to him, and, he
Mhm.
was always supporting them 100%. So,
Well, bravo on parenting
yeah.
and obviously teaching. Like, it
I
is
my
literally God's work.
Oh, sorry?
I said teaching is literally like God's work. Like,
Oh,
you like, with how many lives you've touched, it's like I have this podcast and I always say if one person listens, like it spirals out, right? They tell somebody that
yep.
tells somebody that tells somebody. If you're a good teacher and you're teaching somebody something of value, and I'm not even talking about like, honestly, I couldn't tell you one book we read in your class. I couldn't tell you one book we read. I don't
Alright.
remember. But I remember you and the lessons that you taught me for life, right? And because of that, I act a certain way. I treat my kids and teach them a certain way. I talk to my
Right.
friends a certain way. Who knows how many people it's affected, right? So when you're a teacher, you are affecting, honestly, this might sound exaggerating, like the world, actually, the world, because they're all going different places. You don't know. Is this one going to become president? Is this one going to become this? And you are that little piece in their life. And if you are a positive piece in that, it's just beautiful. You just touch so many lives. I I everlasting love for teachers, honestly, of all kinds. I really do have that.
And as a teacher, I always said, if I can change one student's life, my life will have mattered. I always firmly believe that. It just little things like the comments that you read would just keep me going for the next year. If I always said if one kid is okay because of me, my life has mattered.
Mhm.
Once again, crying, Jackie.
I'm sorry. A lot of people cry on this podcast, so
Hey, it's good.
crying's good. That means it's we're those are the raw emotions we love to see in people. Like, don't hold back. Let it
No,
out. It's
I know.
beautiful.
But I don't know, always like to show emotion. But the older I get, the more it happens. So it's all spilling out now.
Well,
Why, thank
thank
you because like I think about you and I love being friends with students on Facebook and just seeing all the amazing things you do. And I know you've had challenges as a mother. And to me, it is just inspiring that you have taken this thing where you could have literally just rolled in a ball and just woe is me and turned on life and be done. And you have taken it to a different level and you're helping so many people with that. So they may not say it to you. Maybe they do DM you. I don't know. But, everything that you're putting out there is just amazing to me. I'm really proud of you. It's almost like when you are a teacher and you see this stuff, like, cuz you're like a proud mama,
Mhm.
cuz your kid I always called you guys my kids, my
Mhm.
kids have like flown and done wonderful things, and I just love seeing it all on Facebook or Instagram. And I'm so proud of what you've accomplished and all the challenges that you've had that you've been able to overcome. So I really appreciate you having me on this podcast.
Thank you so much for that. That's so kind. And yes, I made it my life's purpose. There's a lot more
Yeah,
coming from me. So, not just the
can't wait.
podcast. We'll talk about that later, but yes, there's a lot more coming. But yes, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure. I'm so happy that you came
Oh,
on here.
thank you. And it was so nice of you to reach out to all those former students. That just made my heart grow 3 sizes.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Rise and Shine with the Mama Jac, where we deep dive into the real, raw, truthful world of parenthood, mental health, wellness, and spirituality. Remember, my loves, it's okay to take a moment for yourself, to breathe, to laugh, and embrace the beautiful messiness of life. Let's keep rising out of our shadows, shining our light, nurturing our souls, and spread love like confetti. Until next time, stay shamelessly authentic. Love, the Mama Jac. For more info and socials, go to shamelesslyauthenticproductions.com.